Hi everyone, so if you are watching the replay then please pop a hashtag replay in comments so I know that you're watching. Any questions at all that you've got, I will come back in and answer them, later for anyone watching on the replay, and I will just make sure that I am actually live. I can see people joining, so say hey, let me know that you're joining, say hello so know that you can hear me and see me, and I am so excited to be here today and be invited to your group to do some training today. So I think I can trust that I am live because I can see people are joined and watching me, and I can see the number increasing. So a big thank you to Jem for inviting me here today to do this training for you all. And it's a bit of a random one, so it might have caught your eye and you might have thought, how is inventing Anna important, and how can we use that? How can we use Anna to be our best selves? And it was really born through a conversation that Jem and I had, because I've been watching Inventing Anna. So for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's a series on Netflix, and some of it I believe is based on a true story about a con woman in New York. And she basically manages to con all of these people out of like millions and millions and millions of pounds, which on the surface of it sounds absolutely awful. And you might be thinking, why are you saying we need to be more like Anna? And that's not quite what I'm saying, and I will explain it in this training. So I started watching the series and I realised that there were some real gifts in it. And we can use the example of Inventing Anna to look at better ways to be our most authentic selves, to be the best versions of us, okay? So on the surface of it, of course, Anna is a bit of a sociopath. She's obviously got some traits in her that aren't particularly seen as particularly ethical, and she's conning lots of people out of some money. But what I have seen in her, which really inspired me, was her confidence, her ability not to take no for an answer. And I feel like we can really learn from some of those gifts. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, and how Inventing Anna and Anna Delphi from the programme can help us to be our most authentic selves. So if today's training resonates with you, I've popped a link in the details of the training, because I'm expanding on this next week in my Authentically You live event. This is a free 3-day training next week, so I'd love to have some of you there if that resonates with you. And this is based on the popularity of my Authentically You course. So I run a course, launched it last year, it was hugely popular, so I've decided to create a free live training event based off of it. So who am I? And I know some of you in this group, but a very big hello to all of you today. I am Gemma Sandwell. I am an energy alignment coach, and I really blend together the science of neuroscience, positive psychology. I've got a qualification in coaching. I've got a mindfulness teacher training qualification as well, and blend that with the spiritual, so with the energy work, with the shadow work, and the tools that we need to get into alignment. And I firmly believe, and I found both on my journey and in my clients' journeys, that by combining both the science and the spiritual is really where we step into our true authentic selves, and we get into flow, we have more joy in our lives, we become more abundant as a result of that as well. So it's by combining both of these approaches. And my background, I had a corporate career for 15 years. I did leadership development in HR, I coached leaders, I trained in coaching, and my background is very sciencey and very corporate. And I went through a massive spiritual awakening when I had really extreme anxiety, and I was completely floored with that anxiety. And I actually ended up at the doctor's one day, and the doctors tried to prescribe me medication to block my emotions. And that was my pivotal moment for me, where I thought, hell no, I am not going to block my emotions. My emotions are really valid. And now what I've learned about shadow work and how we can alchemize our shadows and how we can use our gifts, actually I now realise that that was the right decision. So I kind of hit rock bottom and realised as well that the corporate world wasn't for me, that I was an entrepreneur and that I needed freedom and that I needed to be able to run my business in a way that really aligned with my sensitivities as well. So around that time I also found out that I'm a highly sensitive person, and there's an HSP scale. You can do a test if you've never done the test. So bringing in these gifts of shadow work is also how I've been able to navigate that journey as well, in my life and in my business. So inventing Anna. So on the surface of it appears that Anna is quite she's quite a con woman. She's conned loads of people out of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds in some cases. She does not take no for an answer, and she does not let anything get in the way of her dreams. So on the surface of it, there are actually elements of Anna that I think we can really learn from. And especially if we are, if we've been, I know for me speaking, I'm a recovering people pleaser. If we've been people pleasers in the past and we haven't put ourselves first, then actually by pulling on some of those traits that Anna is showing could be really useful for us. Hi Carla, thanks for joining. But also I want to look at the negative traits as well, and this is where shadow work comes in. So let me know in comments if you've done any shadow work before. Let me know where you're at actually, so I know sort of where to gauge this training. And if you're watching on the replay, let me know as well. Have you delved into the world of shadow work before? And I'll just start to talk about what it is as well, and then we'll sort of get into a bit of a flow with it as your comments come in. So within us, so shadow work is based on the work of Carl Jung, who was a quite a famous, thank you Sophie, so you haven't, so Carl Jung was quite a famous psychologist, and he researched the human psyche, and he found that within us we have both dark and light sides of us, okay? So similar to our emotions, we have both positive and negative emotions. But what happens throughout our life, and as we grow up as children in particular, we start to learn that certain parts of ourselves are not useful or are not approved of in society or by our parents, and we push them right down. And through conditioning, we push these elements of us down. And what happens is they go very deeply into our subconscious mind, and that creates shadows. And this is what shadow work is all about, is about bringing these parts of us to light. Because if for anyone that loves the law of attraction and The Secret and manifesting, for anyone who is manifesting, so this is the biggest thing, right? If you're manifesting and it's not working, it's likely that you've got some shadows that you need to look at, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what's conscious and what's subconscious. So you could on the surface be trying to manifest something, trying to bring a certain amount of income into your business, work with a certain sort of client, or manifest going somewhere on holiday, but somewhere deep within your subconscious mind exists a shadow that is the opposite, okay? So if you are manifesting and it's not working, then it's likely because one of these shadows exists. So you are manifesting that shadow, okay? So it's really important to bring these things to light. And this works on an energetic level as well. So these shadows exist within us on an energetic level. So we will continue to attract situations in our lives because we're matching the vibrational frequency. I'm sure you've all seen by now, if anyone's seen the research of Dr. Joe Dispenza, we very much know in the space of quantum physics now that everything is energy. In our bodies, we can actually measure it. Our bodies have a vibrational rate. So if we're going around vibrating at the rate of those shadows, then we're going to attract those shadows into us. It's purely scientific, okay? It's resonance. So if we can look at those shadows and look at them, then we can clear them. Okay. So my background is in positive psychology, and when I first heard this, so positive psychology, which I also, I use this in alignment with energy work and shadow work with my clients as well, is absolutely transformational, and it's about being our best selves through positive emotion. But to be our best selves through positive emotion and be in that high vibrational state, we need to understand the shadows and clear some of the lower vibrational states to get there as well, not just by saying, because this is what I thought when I first learned it. I was like, well, if positive psychology is such a great thing, why would I go and look at those shadows? Why would I just like not just carry on and pretend they're not there? But it's by seeing them, looking at them, and being able to work through them that we then move into that positive state, and we move into what I call more the neuroscientific part of my work, which is about, you know, getting our brains to be their absolute best selves and be our best selves through positive emotion. So I'm going to go deeper into this next week in the training. So if you want to go deeper into this and more practical, and I've also got some meditations that are going to take us through this process as well, then do sign up on the link above. But another thing that we can do with shadows, so not only do we want to understand them so that we clear our energy and we start to balance our energy and we start to experience more joy and manifest all the things that we desire, there's also some gifts within these shadows as well. So we're not looking at like getting rid of them entirely, we're looking to balance them. And we can do this through looking at the gifts, and this is where Inventing Anna comes in, okay? So are there things, let me know for anyone who's watched it, are there things when you look at people like Anna, you know, who are quite manipulative, quite, I don't know, quite like a bull in, almost like a bull in a china shop, but she does it quite elegantly, I think, in the program. Are there things about Anna that really trigger you? Because if you are getting a strong emotional response to somebody's negative behaviour, then the likelihood is that shadow exists within you and you can use it as a gift. Okay, so this is how we can use shadows to bring the gifts out in them. Sophie, so you're intrigued now? Yeah. So if anyone in our lives trigger us and give us an emotional response, so I remember when I was in corporate, I turned up one day to run a training workshop. This was like one of the pivotal moments for me. I turned up to run a training workshop on coaching. And there was this guy there. He'd worked in the business for many, many years. He was very good at his job. And being asked to go to a training session for him was a huge, huge like attack on his ego. And as soon as I came into that training room, he started to attack me verbally and tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. The reason that I was a coach is because I couldn't do anything else. Really started to lay into me. And I went away from, like, I don't know how I held it together. I managed to hold it together. I asked him to leave, which he refused to, but then he did take part in the workshop in the end. Hold it together, and then I cried on the train all the way home. And I messaged my friend who's also a coach, and I said, this man attacked me. And she said, you have responsibility for how you felt. That was a trigger. You were triggered by that situation. Because if you weren't triggered, you could have easily just stood in your power and said, no, that's unacceptable, leave. But I was so emotionally reacted by it. So this is when I started to delve into shadow work a bit. So if there are elements of Anna, and you can go and research the real Anna Delphi as well, because she was a real con artist. And if there are elements of this that you dislike, so for me, I have huge triggers around inauthenticity and lying. That is a trigger for me that I've been working through. And sometimes for me, that's a boundary. So sometimes these things will be a boundary, and it will be, okay, do you know what? This person's just not in alignment, and setting a boundary is what I need right now. But if we are getting that emotional reaction, then that is within us, okay? So we can look at the gifts, and there really is a gift in everything. So Anna might be manipulative, and she might be like a bull in a china shop at times. And if we find these things triggering, the likelihood is we have these things in us as well. So, and you might think this sounds really strange, me saying to do this, but you know, where have you been? So whatever words you would use to describe, and you can even do this right now in your head, or you know, you're welcome to put it in comments. If there is somebody that has a behaviour that you don't like, how does it make you feel? Okay. And then I want you to think about ways that you behave like this. Okay. So I've really had to take a big look at this for myself. When inauthentic people were triggering me, I was like, right, where am I being inauthentic? In what way am I being inauthentic? And really had to look at what it was. And I've been much more, and I'm so like, I've always been quite vulnerable on my Facebook, on my social media, on my stories. But it was like, okay, well, let's go that little bit deeper and let's share a bit more vulnerability. So I left my marriage last year, and I've been a bit more vulnerable and sharing that side of me as well. So we want to look at what's within us. But if you think about like this con woman Anna, and you say, right, what are the gifts? Well, she doesn't take no for an answer. She goes for her dreams and goals without hesitation. Like, nothing is going to get in the way of her dreams and goals. And even when it seems completely impossible for her to achieve things, she does not give up that unwavering belief in herself. So yes, there is a narcissistic lens on this, but we can learn and we can alchemize these gifts. So there are these parts in all of us, okay? So this is how we get in touch with our most authentic selves. This is how we get into alignment, by looking at the shadows, by clearing the energy of the shadows, but also looking at the gifts that are there as well. Because if we ignore these parts of ourselves, there might be some really great gifts in there. So to give another example of this, when I was suffering with really bad anxiety, I'd almost like not want the anxiety to be there. But it was a gift because it was my sensitivity, and I was getting like really overwhelmed by situations. My body was saying no to situations and I was doing them anyway. I was working in London a lot at the time, and I was doing a lot of like pushing through, so I wasn't listening to my body. And when I said, what are the gifts from these triggers? It was like, wow, do you know what? I'm actually really intuitive. And it reminded me of when I was 8 years old. I actually saved my family's life through my intuitive skills and psychic skills. Like, no one could really explain what happened. But, these were real gifts. So my anxiety was a gift because it was showing me, let me just keep an eye to see if there's any comments. It was showing me actually my intuitive gifts, okay? And if we're highly sensitive as well, rather than seeing it as oh no, like, why am I so sensitive? Why am I feeling so overwhelmed? It's actually, why am I so sensitive? Well, actually, I've got these incredible gifts and I can really tune in to the energy of my clients. I can tune in and like really know deeply what's going on for someone, and even like feel music, like feel the emotion of music really deeply. It really is a gift. And there was also some unwanted gifts within that anxiety as well for me. So, sometimes if I was anxious, I got to take time off work. I got to have chocolate and wine. I got to get help, all the things that actually were serving me on some level as well. So when we do shadow work, we also want to look at like, why are these things serving us? Because they must be serving us in some way, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Okay. So shadow work is one way that we can get in touch with our most authentic selves. And I like to see alignment, and I've actually been shown this with a client, as almost like we're and if anyone else has any great metaphors for this, let me know. But I like to see it a bit like trains on a track almost. So we're a train on a track, and we might have just sort of come off that track a little bit, and using one of the many tools that I use and that I recommend, so shadow work, the shadow work alchemy that I've talked about here, positive psychology, mindfulness, energy work, we can use any of those tools to just help get us back on track. And that track, and I'm not like a train maverick or anything, so if anyone has a better analogy, then do let me know. you know, that track for us is different for every single person. And this is what I work through my clients with, is that you will all have your own unique gifts. You've got your own skills, your unique talents, your unique strengths. So the company that I work with for strengths profiles, CAP, they have 60 strengths, and I've never ever seen, I've done hundreds of strengths coaching conversations, and I have never ever seen the same combination of strengths in people. So we are all unique. So we all have our own path. We all have our own, I like to call it our divine soul alignment plan. Like, we're all here on our own individual missions, which, you know, may play into a bigger mission, which is what I know, like, you guys do. You'll play into that bigger mission, but you'll do that in a different way. So that soul alignment path for you, or that train track, is going to be different for every single person. So it's by doing shadow work, understanding the gifts within the shadows for you, uniquely you, doing energy work. So energy work has been huge for me. And this can also help us with the shadows as well, because if we've done the shadow work, or we're establishing that something actually isn't a shadow, and it's just a boundary, or perhaps we've gone somewhere that's really busy and we've picked up some energy. I went to the supermarket the other day, and when I left, I was like, oh wow, there was a lot of energy in there. So, you know, with energy work, we can clear energy really quickly as well, and we're going to be doing this in the training next week. I'm going to be clearing energy to get you back onto that track, onto that soul divine alignment plan. So that, you know, that track is different for everybody, and you'll all have your own way of getting on and off it. But I would say, you know, I've had 14 years of training in psychology, positive psychology, then kind of went more down the spiritual route, and now I combine the two. And I would say the biggest thing, like, to success in your life and in your business, is just getting you back on that track, getting you back in alignment with your unique self, because we are all unique. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about today. Obviously boundaries, that's probably something else, like, just to mention as well. Boundaries are really important around this stuff as well. So, you know, I've done a certain amount of work on authenticity, and have found that, you know, cleared a lot of the shadows in that. And if I meet someone who's inauthentic, I just don't work with them anymore. Like, I just don't, you know, don't welcome them into my life, because that's really important to me, and that's one of my values, is to be really authentic. So, you know, setting boundaries, if it's not a trigger, and if it's not something we need to do shadow work, then setting boundaries can also bring us back into alignment. Because when we are sensitive, or we're recovering people pleasers, and we want to, you know, we want to make everyone else happy, that's, you know, a lot of us are, you know, grow up with that, almost sacrifice ourselves, then that's bringing us off track as well. So setting boundaries can help to keep us on track. So is there anything else? Let me just check my notes. Anything else that I want to mention? I think I've covered everything. If anyone has any questions, then please let me know, and I'll just share a little bit with you about next week and what the event is going to consist of, so you can see if that feels aligned for you and you'd like to sign up. There's also the opportunity to win, which is crazy. Anyone that loves a repeating number, the prizes are worth £1,111 worth of prizes to win as part of next week's training as well. And what we're going to do is, day one is going to be very much about more the neuroscience side of it. And I like to think of this, so for anyone who's seen my TEDx, or if you want to see my TEDx, let me know, I can send you the link. In my TEDx talk, I talk a lot about the tree. And day one of Authentically You Live is going to be very much the grounded roots of the tree. So what are those grounded roots that we need to put into place through positive psychology? I'm going to teach you my trees model, and why that human side of our development is really, really important to help us be our best selves. So I'm going to teach you that. And we're setting these foundations in place to really grow from, because a lot of people, you know, think, I'm going to go and I'm going to develop, I'm going to do this thing. But unless we've got those grounded roots in place, then of course our tree branches can't grow. And then the shadow work comes in a bit like, I like to call shadow work kind of like pruning the tree. So, you know, any shadows, we're kind of clearing those. We're clearing those out so that so that the tree can grow nicely, like we would if we had a tree in the garden. So that's going to be day one. That's going to be very much focused on the neuroscience and my trees model, and why we really need to consider this human side. And this is what I feel is really missing with aligning to our authentic selves. And then day two is all about energy. So I'm going to talk to you about why energy is the missing puzzle piece, how this was a huge aha moment for me, in better understanding that, you know, I'm very, very sensitive to energy, and we don't have to dramatize it. You know, we can clear that out really quickly. So we're actually going to do an energy clearing and activation with you on day two. I'm going to share my tips to how to navigate sensitivities as an entrepreneur as well. And this is how I did my TEDx. This is how I got on TEDx and got on that stage and shared my story with thousands of people, was through following these tips and advice that I'm going to share with you, like really managing my energy to be the best that I could to stand on that stage. And I've done various other speaking events as well. I'm a top of the scale as a highly sensitive. I'm a massive introvert, so for me to get on that stage was a really big deal. And you know, I've used all of these tools on myself as well. We're also going to talk about boundaries in day two, and how to set amazing boundaries to bring you, as I said, bring you back on that track. And then day three, I'm going to be doing some intuitive readings. So as part of that high sensitivity and intuition, I've done some mediumship training and developed my spiritual skills further. But what I like to do is bring in the grounded aspects here as well. So anyone that turns up live on day three, you'll get a reading on what's holding you back from being your authentic self. And I will coach you around that as well, because this is the important thing for me. Is, you know, we might kind of get the insights and use all the tools, but it's bringing that into grounded action. And I want you to leave feeling really empowered that you've brought yourself back onto that track and alignment yourself. And then of course I'll announce the prize winners as well. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. As I say, if you're watching on the replay, pop any questions in comments and I will come back to them. But I'd really encourage you just to think about, you know, not necessarily just inventing Anna. Of course, you know, go and research Anna Delphi and, you know, look at those traits. But just thinking about triggers in general, and, you know, what do I get triggered by, and what is that showing me? What part of me is that showing me inside of me, and what are those gifts? And how can that help me to step into my most authentic, flourishing self? So I'll leave it there. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And thank you so much for having me in your wonderful group. And I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.